people here that are just faithful about reading their horoscope? I don't ever read my horoscope, but I thought in preparation for this one, since we're talking about the stars and rising and watching all that, that I would check on mine for this day, just to see what kind of day this is going to be for me. What I got was complete harmony in the relations that Leos cherish today, that's me, may not be possible today. Fundamental disagreements or serious obstacles may be between you and your significant other. It may be time for both of you to take some time off to think things through or work on your flaws.
She just found out we were married, sorry.
So if you don't put much faith in horoscopes, you may want to rethink that this morning. I don't know. The idea is this, that astronomy and astrology at one time, they were the same entity. And astronomy as a science kind of took off a different direction than astrology, which is associated with the Magi, or the wise men from the east that came. I know that that we've got a lot going on this morning, and you've heard this story all before, and the idea of the Christmas story would just not be complete without telling of the epiphany of the wise men from the east, recognizing that this is Christ. And so, if I do nothing else today, that we want to make sure that everyone in here understands the answer to the question that we sing, actually, what child is this? And, the music that it's written up, we sing it every year, and the words to it just kind of answer the question, but the question has to be answered individually for each person. And so the wise men are coming to see Herod. Astronomy, whichever you want to talk about, it goes back a long, long time. You know that the Egyptians studied the stars, but even before the Egyptians are noted for studying them, the Babylonians did first. That they, thousands, at least 600 years, maybe not 1,000 years before Christ, that the Babylonians kind of knew about the motion of heavenly bodies and stars, and about how not planetary motions, but about what was going on up there that seems to be repeating itself. And can you imagine, the reason they're called wise is because they were the guys that figured out that if you keep staring at the sky long enough, things happen. And they know things that nobody else does. And so when you go tell the king that there'll be a bright star in the sky in about another month, and all of a sudden in a month it comes up, wow, you've got to be one of the smartest guys on the face of the earth. I want you around me. So we tried to find out who are these wise men, what were they doing. They were people from the Persian Empire, or from the east, that came, and they knew about planetary motions, and they knew about stars in the sky, and they probably knew a whole lot about a whole lot of things. They see the star rising. They come and they travel all the way to Jerusalem, and kind of just open the door for what transpires next. And the story is really, really familiar. We know it. And even our nativity scenes at the no room at the end, so we're in the stable. At the stable, we've got all the players, we've got the shepherds, and the animals that are there, and the three wise men seem to appear here as well. But we know mostly now that it took them longer to get there than it did the shepherds, because they come from pretty far away. And my mother called me last week, and this was so important to her. It was last Sunday she called, and we were talking, and I said, in the course of the conversation, she says to me, "Did you know that the wise men didn't get there until almost," she said, and then I finished the sentence for her, so for maybe a couple years. Yeah. I said, yeah, I knew that. Why didn't you tell me that? She's in Tucson. So, I said I didn't think it was all that important. And this was just, speaking of epiphany, she had one and it was like, this is so important to her because she said, I've been doing my nativity scene all wrong. And I said, is that really the important thing that you need to hang on to about Christmas? And so then we got into another theological discussion. That may have had something to do with this significant relationship that's not going real well. But anyway, that's not what's important about the story. That's not it at all. The Magi find their way to Jerusalem. Herod is the king. And the prediction that goes all the way back into Genesis is that there will be a Jewish king he says Shiloh, this is Jacob speaking, until the Messiah comes, and the Messiah will come when there's no longer a Jewish king in Jerusalem. Now, this is Martin Luther's take on this. I was reading a little bit of Luther theology last week. I'm well read. It's okay. It's okay. So anyway, but he said it doesn't matter. Luther was saying, that only those that are basically mindless would worry about how long it took them to get there, whether they were kings or whether they were not. That doesn't really seem to be. The idea is that they were people that were not associated with the Jewish faith, that seen something happen in the heavens that caused them to travel a great distance and seek this child. And so that's what's really important, is they're trying to answer the question is, what's going on? And when they get there, they want to know the same thing that the song says. What child is this? But they seem to have the answer because they come to Herod and they want to know, where is this child that was born, King of the Jews? And so can you imagine going to a place today like maybe North Korea and talking to Kim Jong-un and saying, we've seen some heavenly motion up there, where's your replacement? Kind of brings it into context, doesn't it? There'd be another attack on Sony or something after that. Or maybe even worse, you don't know. But this is about what they're saying to a despot, to a tyrannical ruler, to a Idumean. He's not even Jewish. He's not a Jewish king. And he has caused so much disruption in Judea that really nobody likes this guy very much. And now, because he is such a tyrant, and you have these people that ride in and want to know where is the king of the Jews. And don't you find it interesting that he is the first person that ties the idea of the Messiah or the king of the Jews with the Christ child? That this star rising, that he even says, where is this Messiah to come from? He's tied this cosmic event with the coming of the wise men from the east to the messianic appearance. And then he tells them, so sends out for the priest, where is this Messiah supposed to be born? Well, it's in Bethlehem. And so they go to Bethlehem and they find the Christ child there. And so as we tell the story again, it's easy for us to dismiss the events of what just went on and just go, and now we're done with Christmas and we can put everybody back in the box and wait until next year to tell the story again as if it is basically unimportant. But it is the essence. It is the essence of your faith. What child is this that had been born, that Herod just identified as the Savior, as the Messiah? And if you've got the ruler that seems to take lead over the priests that have listened to the same thing, it says that all of Judea was upset and shook with fear, which I would imagine would be something like all of Korea would be upset if somebody asked the same story. They would know what's going to happen next, and it wouldn't be good. So Herod tells them, the priest tells them it's going to be in Bethlehem. The wise men go to Bethlehem, do what they're going to do. and the story seems to be about over with there. They go back home. But what we fail sometimes to realize as we look at this is that we have to ask why the story was told in such a particular way. What is God trying to tell us through this story that's so important about us identifying what child is this? Why is it that they would bring three wise men, to supposedly wise men, come to a place that is ruled by somebody like Herod and ask them about their replacement, knowing what could happen next? What sense does that make? They could have asked anyone where the child was. They didn't have to talk to Herod, but they did. And if they were so wise, they had to know what was going to happen after that, that if Herod finds out that this Messiah has been born, he's going to do exactly what Herod did. That's at the very beginning of the next chapter with the slaughter of the innocents. Sends out word to have all the male childs killed. As if that would stop the Messiah. If that would stop God. And why as they follow, see, another thing that you might want to ask yourself is, say in God, because we ask, where is God in all this, and what's going on? And how is God carrying out his plan of salvation? Why do they seem to start off following this star that's in the heavens, and they track it all the way to Jerusalem, and then have to stop and ask directions? And they get to, as they leave Jerusalem and head to Bethlehem, the star beams like a laser beam right down on the place where it's at. And we wonder, why is the story told in such a way? Why would God want us to know that? You know, we're so easy to look over this story and forget about asking the questions about why and how and what. And we think back to the story, and we have to understand that this is the story of the most important event that we'll ever see. That this is the story of the great exchange. That God came to earth to die so that humans could live. Wow. We think about God joining humanity at that time in all the nastiness and evil and hatred and vileness, and to accept all that at such a time so that we could become more like us, that we could become more like him. Everybody know the O. Henry story, The Gift of the Magi? Familiar with it? It's a great story. It talks about sacrificial love. Jim and Stella, who have nothing. She has beautiful hair. He has a watch. His grandfather's before that. Christmas time. Have no money. She sells her hairs to buy him a gold chain for his watch. He sells the watch to buy her combs. It's a wonderful story. I think I read it about 7th grade. It was a short story, but it's great. But it talks about sacrificial love and the ends that people will go to make sure that someone else knows the depths of how much someone else loves them. And that's why it was called the Gift of the Magi, because that's what it tells us at this time. That Magi recognized selfless love when they seen it. That it was all about God coming and saying, you want to know what child this is? It's me. None other than me. I care that much about you that this is the plan for your salvation right here, right now. And it takes people from outside Jerusalem to bring it to you. The Magi story is one that talks about the depths of God's love for us and nothing more. It can almost be divorced from the Christmas story a little bit from the stable. It says the light shined down on the house in Bethlehem that they were living at. It's probably time that it was moved over. The story's only told in Matthew. Matthew explains how Jesus gets from Bethlehem to Nazareth. Luke explains how he got from Nazareth to Bethlehem. You have to put them all together. But the story of the Magi talks about exactly how we answer the question, what child is this? And so we'll ask it this morning for ourselves, what child is this? That as we grasp a hold of the concept of Christmas and the Magi and sacrificial love, what does it mean for us when we look in the manger and see the babe there? Do we see a baby? Or do we see nothing but divinity and love and God trying to make a connection with us in a way that's never been done before, that shakes the heavens and causes lights to appear? And it will happen again if we read Revelations, portents in the sky, omens, darkness where it's not supposed to be, light where it's not supposed to be. It will come back again. So as we think about this epiphany that happens at this particular time of year, just know that when we look to the heavens and see the great lights, every one of them represents God's love for you. Each one of them. There's a bunch of them out there. This is this time of the year where we start to think about the whole rest of the year, the church year. We've got so much to look forward to all year long. And it begins right here with an understanding of just the depths of God's love for us. And if we don't get that, then we'll never be able to share it in the community. We have to absorb that right now. We have to take it in. We have to make it part of who we are. So that every time that we look at something, it reminds us of how much God loves us. These are all going to go away. These will all be put back in boxes. Your Christmas trees at home are probably all gone away. Decorations put away for another year. But this story about the Epiphany, this story about what child is this, should always remind us who this child stands in relation to God and us. That this is God's gift of sacrificial love that is immeasurable. Think that as we ponder it and sing this song again, first stanza of it, that I think it's going to soak in just a little bit more to you, and you'll get an understanding of it if you take these words in and make them part of your essence this morning. If you just allow these words to become part of you, part and parcel of who you are this year. Answer the question. When we look at this child, what child is this?